The film begins on a dark night, where we meet Carol and her mother, Sandra. Carol decides to help her mother, who intended to hang the clothes in the backyard. Sandra asks her daughter to be careful not to wrinkle the pieces, and the young woman agrees before leaving. Outside, Carol notices something strange and begins to observe the surroundings, on alert. Frightened by mysterious noises, she tries to return, but comes face to face with a grotesque and blind creature. The young woman screams desperately and tries to flee, but trips and is quickly attacked. Her screams reach Sandra, who goes out to check what happened. Upon hearing the monster's roars, she returns terrified to the inside of the residence, but realizes that the danger has already invaded the place. The woman grabs a gun kept in the drawer and prepares to investigate. Suddenly, the blind beast corners her, while gunshots and screams echo from inside the house. Shortly afterward, we see Rita on the phone with her mother, Mary. Worried about the health of her sick father, Rita insists on traveling with the family to the isolated farm, ignoring her mother's warnings about the isolation of the place. Right after hanging up, Mary hears a frightening growl in the backyard and looks through the window. At Rita's house, her husband Alan comforts her and agrees to leave the next morning using an old trailer. The next day, the preparations begin, but the couple's son, Ben, shows dissatisfaction at having to go along with his sister Charlie and her boyfriend Tyler. According to Ben, the two argue too much, and Alan agrees that he does not want to hear arguments during the long trip. Rita asks her husband not to encourage their son's attitudes and returns to the inside of the residence. Meanwhile, Charlie and Tyler continue arguing inside the house. Tyler complains that he had planned a special weekend for the two of them, but she argues that her grandfather is very sick and needs them. Charlie ends the subject, and the two go downstairs to leave. The family soon begins the journey toward Mary's house and, after some time, stops on a roadside shoulder to relieve themselves. Worried, Ben approaches his father and asks if his mother is all right. Alan says that she will be fine, but admits that he is not sure about his father-in-law's condition, since the elderly man had been admitted to the hospital several times that year. Ben becomes sad about the situation, and Alan comforts him before giving his son some time. While Tyler and Alan enter the trailer, Charlie approaches her brother and asks if he is going to tell the truth to their parents, revealing that Ben is hiding a secret. The young man replies that this is not the right moment, and Charlie advises him to take that weight off his chest. She warns that their parents will find out sooner or later. After his sister leaves, a sign on a gate leading into the forest catches Ben's attention. The warning says to be careful because tests are underway in the area and demands absolute silence. The family finally arrives at Mary's house, but Rita discovers that her mother has disappeared. Alan suggests that she may be at the neighbor Sandra's house, and the couple goes there to check, leaving the children at the house. When they arrive, they find the doors wide open. Ignoring Alan's optimism, Rita investigates the inside of the residence and finds marks of a suspicious red liquid on the stairs. Terrified, she warns her husband that something is wrong. Alan insists that they go back and try to call the local hospital. Rita, though reluctant, agrees to leave. At the farm, Ben questions his grandmother's disappearance, but Tyler cuts through the mood by revealing that he already knows about his girlfriend's pregnancy. Irritated by his sister's gossip, Ben walks away. Soon after, Alan and Rita return and try to use the landline, but the line is dead. Ben offers his cell phone, and Alan asks everyone to test their devices, but no one finds a signal. Tyler downplays it, saying that it is normal because it is an area of dense woods. Worried, Alan says that he will go to town with Rita and asks the young people to wait in the residence. Charlie notices her father's nervousness and asks what is wrong, but he avoids the subject. Ben insists on going along, and his father ends up accepting his company. When they reach the pickup truck, Alan notices that the battery is dead and blames the lights being left on, but Ben says that they were off when he left. Confused, Alan decides to continue on foot with his wife and son because he believes the town is nearby. Before leaving, he asks Tyler to examine the vehicle's engine. Later, the trio reaches town, and Rita becomes desperate when she notices that the place is completely abandoned. To investigate, Ben suggests that they enter through the back of a store, and the three move forward. Meanwhile, at the farm, Tyler works on the pickup truck and tells Charlie that there is nothing wrong with the parts. The car simply gave up working. Frightened, she argues that a vehicle does not die out of nowhere. Tyler also says that he does not know how that collapse of the car is possible. Meanwhile, in town, the family enters an abandoned restaurant and begins calling for someone. Ben and Rita soon find the mark of a grotesque hand made with a red liquid. On alert, the two decide to enter the kitchen, where they find even more of that substance spread across the floor, as well as a camera. Rita picks up the object, while Ben finds some fallen photos. When checking the images, the young man becomes completely frightened, causing Rita to approach to see them as well. Meanwhile, Alan waits for the two in the main hall when he notices more of the same red liquid on the counter and approaches to investigate. Suddenly, a severely wounded man appears out of nowhere, frightening Alan, who immediately tries to provide help. The stranger apologizes, leaving Alan confused and motivating him to ask what happened in the place. The man reveals that they created something in a laboratory and that now it is loose, wandering around. Worried, Alan asks exactly what came out of the laboratory, but the terrified man only warns that they need to leave immediately. Alan tries to help the survivor, but before dying, the stranger desperately screams for Alan to flee the town. At the same time, at the farm, Charlie wanders around the surroundings when the monster runs past behind her. She feels a strange chill, but decides to continue exploring the region and finds an abandoned barn. Charlie enters the place and begins to search the environment, finding the photo of two children. When she sits down to check the image, she accidentally knocks over a glass jar, and the shattering noise catches the monster's attention. The creature is completely blind, but is guided by any noise the humans make. Without realizing that the creature is already lurking, Charlie begins to clean the glass mess on the floor. Upon hearing a bizarre grunt, the girl looks to the side and becomes completely paralyzed with fear. Terrified, she lets her things fall and runs to hide in the horse stall. Noticing that the monster did not immediately advance, she carefully sneaks out to check and realizes that it is very close. Charlie remains in absolute silence while the beast searches the place. The girl realizes that the monster truly cannot see and decides to slowly leave where she is. When the beast turns in her direction, she acts quickly and hides in another part of the barn. Frightened upon noticing a slimy liquid on the floor, she decides to investigate the back of the place. It is at that moment that Charlie finds the creature's nest, coming across her grandmother Mary, trapped in the cocoons and begging for help. In town, Alan is still deeply shaken when his wife and son return from the kitchen. They ask what happened and show the photo of the creature, but Alan, in panic, warns that something terrible happened there and that they need to leave immediately. Ben finds the man's corpse and is completely shocked, while Rita questions what could have caused such destruction. Alan says that he does not know, but states that he does not want to be in that place when the beast returns. At the same time, Charlie desperately tries to save her grandmother Mary, who begs for help in the nest. However, the girl hesitates to help her, and in that moment of hesitation, the creature advances on Charlie and vomits a grotesque substance on her before releasing her. After being wounded by the monster, Charlie begins to flee the place. She is almost captured when she panics because she cannot open the back door in time. Desperate, the young woman continues running aimlessly through the forest until she stops in a corner to catch her breath. Upon hearing the beast's growls approaching, she runs back to the farm. When she sees Tyler, she desperately screams for him to run. Tyler supports her and, without understanding anything, asks what is happening, but soon the beast emerges from the vegetation and forces the two to run together. He insists on knowing what it is, but his girlfriend is in a state of shock and cannot answer. Desperate, she demands the trailer keys and quickly enters the vehicle, ordering him to do the same. Not understanding the gravity of the danger, Tyler hesitates to enter and ends up being brutally attacked by the creature. Charlie remains in absolute silence inside the trailer. Gathering courage, she carefully sneaks over to lock the door, when Tyler, bloodied and agonizing, appears begging for help. Charlie extends her hand to help him, but he is brutally dragged away, while she locks herself inside the trailer. Suddenly, Tyler's hand begins knocking on the door, but frightened, Charlie does not want to go out. She grabs a cloth to tend to her wounds when the creature begins shaking the trailer and Charlie cannot stop screaming. Meanwhile, the family is returning, still wondering what did that. Alan insists that he does not know, but admits that it was something large. Already at night, the family continues the way back when they hear some screams. Ben asks what that could be, when Alan remembers his daughter, and they return in a hurry. When they arrive, they find enormous claw marks on the trailer, and soon hear the grunts. They slowly approach the vehicle, and when Alan sneaks forward to investigate, he sees the creature devouring someone's remains. Worried, he thinks it is his daughter, and tells the family to remain silent. Alan counts down, and the three run into the house without making noise. In despair, Rita says that the young people may still be alive, and that they cannot abandon them. Alan is the first to understand how the monster acts, and quickly explains the situation to the family. He reveals that the creature is completely blind, and locates its prey only through the sounds it hears. Because of that, he asks everyone to remain calm and in absolute silence, because any noise will make the beast attack them. In panic, Ben says that he has no idea what that being is, but says that he managed to see that its mouth is full of sharp teeth. Meanwhile, Charlie survives the attack in the trailer and tries to get out through the window. Watching everything from the house, Alan notices that the beast has moved away and decides to take the opportunity to rescue his daughter. Rita and Ben try to make him give up on the idea, but the father refuses to abandon her. After reassuring the family, he proceeds in absolute silence to the trailer. Charlie sees her father and becomes filled with hope, but Alan freezes when he finds Tyler's mutilated body. Even shaken by the scene, he controls his reaction so as not to produce any noise. Then, the father carefully opens the vehicle door and manages to reach his daughter. Alan asks her to remain silent, and the two begin returning together to the residence. However, Charlie hesitates once again, and this brief delay ends up being fatal. The monster suddenly appears and brutally attacks Alan. Desperate, Rita watches the entire tragedy from afar, while Charlie runs back to the house completely in shock. Already protected upstairs, the three survivors try to isolate themselves. However, Ben cannot hide his concern when he notices the severity of his sister's injuries. In tears, Charlie says that Tyler died. Rita asks her to stay silent and begins taking care of her wounds. Meanwhile, outside, Alan, still alive, is dragged by the beast to its nest. During the care, Charlie reveals that she found her grandmother alive. Surprised, Rita asks what happened to Mary, and her daughter explains that the old woman is trapped in the barn and is in great danger. Rita tries to better understand the situation, but Charlie cannot continue speaking due to her condition. Because of this, the mother asks Ben to get water to calm his sister. Sometime later, Rita comments to her son that Charlie seems to have some kind of bizarre virus. Ben believes that the wounds have only become inflamed, but Rita disagrees and states that the symptoms do not look like those of a common infection. Fearing that her daughter's condition will worsen, she says that Charlie urgently needs a doctor's help. Ben reveals that he still believes his father is alive, and Rita admits that she also has that hope. The young man insists that they need to act, and his mother agrees, but she remembers that first they will need to rescue Mary, who remains trapped in the barn. Ben questions how they will manage to do that, since the creature is probably protecting the place. Rita remembers what Alan had discovered about the creature. It was completely blind and located its victims only by sound. Convinced that the beast is only waiting for someone to make a mistake so it can attack, she decides that everyone must remain in absolute silence. Rita instructs her son not to leave there, believing that if they stay hidden, they will be safe until some rescue arrives. Ben, however, refuses to wait, saying that he cannot stand still while his father may be needing help. Rita reminds her son that Charlie is injured and cannot be left alone. With no other alternative, Ben offers to go alone, stating that he is fast enough to run and seek help on his own. Even so, His mother fears that there are more creatures spread throughout the region and believes that the entire village may already have been taken by them. Rita decides that the priority must be to rescue her mother, leaving the search for Alan for a second moment. Ben then asks what she believes that creature is, and Rita recalls a story from her childhood. She says that when she was a child, soldiers forbade people from approaching an installation in the region. Ben quickly associates the account with the mysterious warning he saw on the gate on the way to the farm. Rita believes that the beast may have been hidden in that place for a long time, and that, because of that, so many legends arose about the area. Curious, Ben asks what stories those were. Rita replies that no one took the rumors seriously, but due to her son's insistence, she reveals that many said the military carried out experiments to create biological weapons in the place. Ben asks if she really thinks that thing was created by man. Rita admits that she does not know and ends the conversation, saying that she needs to save her mother. Ben tries to stop her, arguing that he is younger, faster, and should go in her place. Rita, however, asks her son to listen to her, at least this time. Then, she leaves the mission of protecting Charlie in the young man's hands and leaves alone toward the barn. At the same time, Charlie continues losing a lot of her vital liquid, and Ben does everything possible to stop the bleeding and calm her. Despite the attempts, the young woman worsens drastically and ends up vomiting on her brother. Ben runs to the bathroom to clean himself, while Charlie realizes that there is something terribly unusual in her wound. Alone, she goes down to the kitchen, takes a knife, and begins cutting her own arm to try to remove whatever is under the skin. Meanwhile, Rita proceeds in absolute silence to the barn. On the way, she passes very close to Alan, who is still alive but cannot call her, because he knows that any sound would attract the creature. Following the viscous marks left on the floor, Rita finally finds Mary trapped in a cocoon. She enters the place and wakes her mother, without realizing that the monster is still nearby. In despair, Rita tries to free her and begs her to remain silent, but the two soon realize that the creature is approaching. With no alternative, Rita quickly hides inside a large container full of water, while the beast searches the barn. At the same time, Ben returns from the bathroom and finds Charlie mutilating her own arm. The young woman reveals, in panic, that there is something growing inside her and begins pulling small eggs out of the open wound. Horrified by the biological horror scene, Ben can barely contain his nausea. He tries to take the knife from his sister, but Charlie continues pulling out the eggs in complete panic. Convinced that the situation is extremely serious, the young man says that she needs a doctor and leaves the place to look for help. Meanwhile, in the barn, Rita is almost discovered. Unable to hold her breath any longer, she emerges to breathe and ends up letting out a scream of pure despair. At that moment, Ben arrives at the barn and screams to attract the creature's attention. Then, the young man runs away in an attempt to draw it away from Rita, but ends up being saved by Alan. His father quickly pulls him into a stall before he is reached. Meanwhile, Rita manages to free her mother, but is horrified to see several spiders coming out of her open wound. Realizing that Mary is gravely wounded and has no chance of survival, Rita hears her mother beg her to flee. Heartbroken, she says goodbye and is forced to leave her behind. At the same time, Alan and Ben wait for the right moment to escape the barn. The two prepare to run, but Ben accidentally bumps into some objects, which makes the beast attack him. Alan remains motionless, and Ben does the same while the creature is positioned right over him. To save his son's life, Alan claps his hands loudly and diverts all the monster's attention to himself. This time, the father cannot escape the brutal attack. Moments later, Rita witnesses her husband's death and, consumed by fury, draws the creature to herself. Ben uses the distraction to escape, while Rita continues being hunted by the beast. She manages to reach the trailer and locks herself inside before being hit. Outside, the monster violently shakes the vehicle, leaving the mother terrified. After a few moments, everything becomes silent, and she believes that the danger has finally passed. However, when she decides to react, the door is brutally broken open. The beast invades the trailer and attacks her mercilessly. In the barn, Ben tries to keep Alan alive, but his father is already taking his final breaths. Before dying, Alan reveals that he already knew he would be a grandfather and asks his son to tell his grandson that he would have loved to meet him. Then, he says goodbye, and Ben breaks down in tears beside his father's body. Later, the young man returns to the farm and finds his sister, already lifeless because of the infection. Consumed by rage and by the loss of his entire family, he finds a gun and decides to hunt the creature, following the tracks to the trailer. When he opens the doors, he finds Rita trapped in a cocoon, and his mother desperately screams for him to run. The screams attract the monster, and Ben tries to shoot, but discovers that the gun has no ammunition. At the last instant, the military appears at the place and advances to contain the laboratory creature. Unable to believe everything that happened, Ben remains in deep shock. The film ends with a dark revelation. The young man has also been infected and carries the creature's offspring.